Hello, welcome to our lesson today. We're going to be focusing first of all today on geological time. We need to remember that geologists have divided Earth's history into a series of time intervals. Unlike the way in which we measure our time, our everyday lives into hours, minutes, days, weeks, months, years, time intervals in terms of geological time are variable in length, and this is because geological time is divided using significant events in the history of the Earth. So to show you what I mean, you are possibly 17 years old, and you would say that you got to be 17 by a measure of passing 17 equally distanced years apart from each other, or equally timed years. A space of time of a year is identical. But you could measure your life in a different way. You could say that you were born at 17 years, but at 16 and a half years, you learned to walk. At 12 years, you started school. At 11 years, a baby sister was born, and so on. In other words, you're measuring your life by events rather than years. And that is how geological time works. Geologists don't measure time by years alone. They divide the periods of time up into what happened, what were the major events. And usually the most significant events in the prehistory of the Earth are linked to extinctions, meteors hitting the Earth, possibly causing ice ages or volcanic activity, and causing the extinction of thousands and thousands and thousands of different species of plants and animals. For example, the boundary between what we call the Permian period and the Triassic period is marked by a global extinction. And so scientists look at the history of life and they've divided it very conveniently into different periods of time, rather than saying, right, we know the Earth is 460 billion years old, we're going to divide it into periods of a billion years, a billion years, a billion years. They've gone rather by what events were happening. And so geological time is measured in huge intervals of time. Eons are hundreds of millions of years long, and eons are divided into smaller time intervals known as eras. Eras are subdivided into periods, and periods can be further subdivided into epochs. And so here we see a picture, a scheme showing us we have had 2 eons. Within this eon of the Phanerozoic, we find, for example, 3 eras. Each era is divided into a number of periods, and the periods can be divided into a number of epochs, and we can see how many millions of years ago all of these things took place. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, oh my word, how am I going to learn all those words, those difficult terms, and how am I going to learn the order? Please don't worry about that. Scientists use lots of different diagrams, timelines, and different ways of presenting that information to you. Sometimes diagrammatically, sometimes in terms of graphs and tables. What is important here is not that you remember the names of the periods or their order or how long ago they happened. You will very often be provided with the information in some form of a diagram, in a test or exam, and you must simply be familiar with how that diagram works. Usually at the bottom of the diagram, we'll have the oldest periods of time, moving up to the more modern periods of time. You must understand that things are divided into different eons, different eras, periods, and epochs. You must know how that works, but relax. You do not have to know those very tricky, long names. Just be confident, and the only way you will get confident is by looking at lots of different examples of timelines or charts that show the history of the world. It might be a good idea, if you've got access to a computer, to Google geological time and see the whole range of ideas that you can use to present geological time. And as you look at these examples, you'll become a lot more familiar with how they work. And so we're just going to look at some of the very salient or most important features of some of these periods. We could start off right at the very bottom after the break, and we're going to look at what happened in the Hadean period of the Precambrian era or eon, and we're going to just see what are the salient features of each of these different periods. So I'll see you after the break.